Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour, your source for all hard rock, heavy metal, new metal, alternative, punk, horror punk, hardcore, rock, and all local bands, with your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bodfather.
Hi, this is Luke Keating, vocalist for Blacklist Regulars, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
The views and opinions of the guests do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Radio Network, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Radio Network.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I'm your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bodfather, and as always, I'm bringing you guys and gals awesome interviews. Today, it's an honor and a huge privilege to have Mr. Luke Keating. He's the vocalist of Blacklist Regulars. Blacklist Regulars have released their debut album, Through the Blast, which is out now via Pavement Entertainment. So we're going to be talking to him about all this good stuff and what's up with Blacklist Regulars. So, Luke, my man, how's it going?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Doing awesome. Glad to have you on the show.
No, thanks for having me on.
How's it been working with Pavement Entertainment so far?
It's been great. So far, so good. The record came out on June 14th, and, we've been busy playing a decent amount of shows, and we are going to be on the Powerman 5000 tour that's coming up in October, November with Head P and Edema, the Days of Disorder tour. So, everything's going well so far, no complaints on our end.
So how shocked are you to actually see how Edema is going to be with the new vocalist? Because I remember them when they first came out with with Giving In, that album. I mean, I'm very anxious.
It's a big discussion at the moment. I mean, Edema to me is a completely new band. Because I'm originally from Ireland, so there's a couple acts that I just haven't heard of, across the pond. So okay. Edema is one of these artists that I'm really getting to know now, So it's going to be interesting.
I was very shocked when I saw that they got a new lead singer, and I actually was very excited because I got to see them a very long time ago, and okay. I love their music. So enjoy. You will dig them, I think, Luke. I think you'll actually love them, dude, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, everything I've heard so far, I've really liked, and it's just great to be out on something like this and get in front of a crowd and let them have our music and see what they think of it, So
this debut has been in the making for almost 2 years. Let's talk about why the long length of taking time to do this album. Was it just something you want to get perfect, or what happened?
I think it was more of a case of deciding. I mean, there was a couple of lineup changes to the Blacklist Regulars band, and just deciding where we wanted to go musically and what we wanted to cover and what we could all really agree on. We have a lot of different musical tastes, but there's some common ground there with certain bands that we were all very much influenced by, like Stone Temple Pilots and Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, and bands like that. So I think it was just difficult originally to figure out the balance, between what was going to go on this record and what we all felt comfortable with what the band should be, because we've really been a band a short period of time, maybe a little over 2 years. So, yeah, I think that was the biggest, and, it's anything with a band, there's always that creative tension, and it's, we definitely have it in our band, but I think it makes for good music,
Exactly. And a lot of bands, man, that actually, I think, helps them out if there's artist stronghold like that, because I think that they put out a better album. I'm not knocking nobody out there, but it just seems like when there's that stronghold, there's more passion into that album, I guess I could say.
And I'd agree with that. It's whatever you want to call it, creative tension, creative differences, push and pull, that type of stuff where you don't want to talk to your bass player, but usually good music comes from that. If we all did stuff that just made us comfortable all the time, then we probably wouldn't have anything exciting on a record, I think.
What's impressed or excited you the most Luke, about making or working on this debut album, if anything? What's caught your eye the most about it, man?
I mean, to be honest with you, the tracking and everything like that is once we can get down what we're actually doing, the rest of it's pretty easy. You know, it's leading up to the point of actually tracking it. Our guitarist produced this record and mixed this record, and that's a blessing and a curse at the same time. So, you know, but as far as actually being in the studio together and getting through what we need to get through and getting a performance, so to speak, on the record, that's really the most exciting thing for me, is actually, you know, knowing that you got the performances on the takes, and you know, because you're still not 100% sure of what it is. And I really love being in the studio. You know, I probably like it just as much as I like being out and performing, you know, because you can try some stuff out, and you can make mistakes, you know, until you figure out exactly what it is you're doing. But I think we tracked everything pretty seamlessly. You know, it nearly felt like, oh, okay, the record's done, you know, and we just got excited about playing it then, you know. We were leading, we had so much, you know, different opinions leading all the way up to the record, and these 10 songs we could at least agree on, you know. We must have had another 20 tracks, 25 tracks that were contenders to be on the record too. So, yeah, all that good stuff.
So having those extra 20 songs plus more, will they ever see the light of day possibly on an EP or another album maybe down the road? Yeah,
it's possible. I mean, that was the thing. It's kind of getting the balance right between the heavier songs and the more sort of rock influenced songs, you know, versus, you know, having more of one than the other, or having ones that were, you know, trying to get a balance on the record is basically what we wanted to try and do. Because, as I was saying earlier, we're all kind of influenced from a lot of different bands in the rock genre. So we didn't want a record, all of us didn't want a record that was too heavy, and, you know, vice versa. We didn't want one that was too light. You know, we wanted something that like reflected how we thought musically. So it's an interesting, and I think it's pretty well balanced as far as the record goes. But yes, I think there's definitely some songs that were probably shelved on this record that we'll see pop up later, you know.
You added a bonus track from the Superhuman EP entitled Superhuman to the debut record. What made you guys want to say, okay, let's put this song from the EP on as a bonus track?
Yeah, so it was a track that just kept popping up as far as everybody at our label was concerned, because, and ourselves really, we felt like when you put something out yourself and you don't really have any resources or, you know, a game plan behind it, but you got to put something out so you can, you know, go play shows and point to something to people and say, yeah, this is our song. And, you know, for the record company, it was very much a case of, you know, this song, I don't think people have really heard it, you know, and we really want to push it as the opening single for the record. And we feel as though it would be very strong for you guys to put it onto the record. And then, you know, we talked it through, and everybody agreed, you know, in the end, that we should probably put it on as a bonus track, because we just felt that not enough people heard it, you know, the first time around. So that was kind of the reasoning behind that. So.
Any songs standing out more to you than any right now on this debut album? I know it must change every time you listen to it. I know you're very close to these songs, Luke, but do you have any that stick out for you possibly?
Fallen from the Sun, to me, I really love performing that song. Enemies is another favorite of mine. It always seems to get a great reaction when we do it live. And Don't Give Up as well as another, some more of a, it's a heavier, more sort of Alice in Chains inspired song. And yeah, I really enjoy performing that one too. And as you said, like it changes here and there. You know, after a couple months, I'm feeling this other one better. You know, but I really like to see how people react to the music, and you know, when people come up and talk to you about it afterwards, and you know, it just makes it sort of all worthwhile when people have a good reaction to what you're doing. You know.
You mentioned that the guitarist produced this album. Now, do you like him better as the guitarist or the producer? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think it's a valid point. I think it's difficult to wear a couple hats in a band, you know, and still be, you know, have a vote as a band member. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're the guitarist, but you're the producer and you're the mixing engineer. So you know, I don't think it's an easy job because everybody has opinions, strong opinions in this band. So, you know, I would have hated to have been him taking that on and trying to balance everything. But I think he did a great job doing that, you know. And likely for myself, you know, I've had to do a few things as well. I've been basically managing the band and doing all of that sort of stuff as well. So it's not easy to do multiple jobs in the band, you know, and still be collectively just a band member as well. So, you know, my hat's off to him. I think he did a great job, and yeah, it's not easy.
Could you see him doing more albums for you guys, or you guys want to just go with a producer the next time?
It's possible. It's possible. I mean, it really hinges on how well we do with this record, and you know what comes of it from here on out. Maybe we get opportunities to work with other producers or to go other places, and you know we'd have to sit down and have a think about that. He may not want to produce the next record. I don't know. He may need some time to get over this record, but you know, it is one of those things. I think it's hard to be the producer and then also just be a band member as well, you know, so I think it really is. And, you know, partly the reason why another producer will come on is like it's an independent party, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's that other deciding vote, or that other, you know, I think you should go this way versus you know, a band member saying it too. But you know, it all worked out, and he's excellent at what he does. You know, I guess we'll just cross that bridge when we come to it. You know, if we get the opportunity to do another record, which would be fantastic, you know, that's always an option.
Who did the cover art for the album?
So a friend of the guys from South America, Eduardo Hildago, did it. He owns a company called E2H Design, and yeah, he did a lot of the graphics, the artwork. He did a lot of the video editing. So the video for Superhuman, he did a lot of the post editing for that. We did 2 other music videos that haven't been released yet that he's done all of the work on as well. So I think he's done a great job.
Was it hard to choose between the set of songs on this album, which would be your guys' first track that you want to push out there, let alone a video? I mean, was it difficult for you guys, or did you have somebody from the outside just to pick it for you all?
You know, when you're in it and you're trying to make a lot of decisions yourself, you know, people will obviously feel, you know, more strongly about other songs than other people will. You know, I try to be independent about, you know, what songs people seem to be reacting to. You know, I'll play the record for my wife and say, which ones do you like? You know, because sometimes I'm too close to it. You know, I'm too close to it. I've missed that sort of objectivity because I'm right in the middle of it. You know, but you know, the Pavement really were pretty. They thought that Superhuman would be a great one to lead with. You know, that a lot of people would probably like it, and then in turn, then you know, it leaves the sort of door open then when we release the other stuff for people to also pay attention to that, you know. So we just follow their lead on this one.
What do you hope everyone takes away from this album, or message you hope they hear while listening to it, Luke, or just any of Blacklist Regulars music in general? What do you hope they get from it?
You know, when I was growing up, all the bands I listened to always had messages in their music, and I felt like, you know, I related a lot to the lyrics or the feelings of the songs, and you know, that's pretty much what we wanted to convey in the record. We you know, I wrote a lot about, you know, a lot of personal stuff. You know, there's a sort of a wide spectrum of, you know, subjects that we covered there, but all sort of like, you know, relationships and, you know, overcoming adversity and, you know, taking opportunities and, you know, struggling and hard work and all that type of stuff. And, you know, on the other side of that, there's a lot of hope and there's a lot of, you know, growth and stuff like that. And I kind of wrote about personal experiences on the record. So hopefully that reflects and other people can relate, you know, to that stuff too. Cause I don't really think I think everybody goes through it, you know? So that's kind of what I wanted to write about on the record. And hopefully people can hear that come true.
You listen to stuff that had subliminal messages, Luke. Don't lie. Don't lie.
Subliminals, well, you got to play it backwards to get those messages.
That's right.
You got to get the vinyl. We got to get the vinyl editions for those too.
Do you see this band still musically growing from the last EP, or has it just been more of a personal growth for all of you guys involved in Blacklist Regulars?
I think it's been a bit of both. I think we've evolved as musicians for sure. It's not I mean, you got to be on it. You got to be on it, like, you know, most days a week to be able to, you know, perform this genre of music well, I feel, and, you know, to get anybody's interest in it, you know, because there's no real faking it. You got to be a good band when you go and play live, you know. So I think that's been a huge improvement for us, and we've worked, you know, pretty damn hard on that over the last couple of years. And because this whole band is like a little bit out of all of our comfort zones, it's kind of pushed us, you know, to be better. So I would say both is the truth, you know. And I mean, for me, I'm always trying to push myself to be better anyway. So, you know, things don't come quickly. You know, sometimes you just have to do the hard work and
that's true.
Put the time in, and you know where you're going as well. You know roughly where you're going. You know, our sort of goal this year was to get out onto a tour and to put the record out on the label, and, you know, get in front of people and play live. And you know, those things are starting to happen. So we have the opportunity for it for sure. So, you know, the rest is really up to how well we go out and do that on the stage and, you know, execute, you know, keep it together. so to speak. And, you know, the rest is up to how it's perceived, you know, but we're really grateful for the opportunity. So,
and congrats to you guys on this, because it's very hard. And I've said this a long time, and people think I'm crazy when I say this, but it's very hard to be an overseas band, especially coming from Ireland. I mean, you wouldn't think that they'd be a heavy band from Ireland. And I'm not knocking you or saying anything bad because you're from Ireland. I'm just saying that you wouldn't think that, but they are. They are tremendously some awesome bands from over there that play heavy music.
That's true, yeah.
And I wish that even from Germany, all over the place overseas, I wish that they would. I wish some of these festivals over here in the U.S. would bring them over. Like, there's a band from Germany that I absolutely love. I've been saying this the last couple of years, called Tenside. They're awesome, dude.
Right.
I just don't know what it is. I don't know if it's something through like customs or if it's paying to bring all their equipment over, you know? So I don't know. But
well, with any sort of international, you know, travel, there's always, particularly as artists, there's always, you know, visas to be taken care of, and, you know, there's the logistics of doing the whole thing, which can maybe not work out too well when you work out the cost involved. And then also, you know, like that's, I presume that band's like a big band in Germany, is it, or like a medium-sized band, or
they're kind of like me. Yeah, they're medium, I would say.
Maybe a lot of people don't know about their music here in the United States, so maybe it's harder, you know, to sell them to the venues and stuff like that. So like a lot of that sort of stuff comes into play. Like, for instance, like when I moved here, you know, and the rest of the guys are all from South America, we don't have an extended, you know, group of people we went to college with and school with and all that type of stuff. So, you know, you're starting from zero, essentially. Right. Yeah. You know, there is no fan base. There is no people that are going to come to your shows and support and all the rest of it. So it's, you know, it's like 10 times as tough to start from zero and go, you know, get where you're going. But, you know, I kind of say to everybody, if it's good enough, people will pay attention eventually. You know, if it's real enough and you do something that's, you know, authentic and real, and the performance is good and you guys are working hard, you know, someone will pay attention to that. And that's kind of what happened. We worked our ass off for 2 years, and then we got the opportunity with Pavement. Yeah. So, you know, we're going to work our ass off for another couple of years and see what happens. You know, that's the focus. So, you know, we're just pushing to get better. But I agree with you, yeah. And, you know, it is strange when you live in other countries. Some bands you don't hear of as much because they're just not on the radio there. You know, so someone has to suggest a band to you. You know, you need to listen to this band. I have a friend who lives in Germany, and, you know, sometimes he says to me, oh, you got to listen to this band. So similar to what you just said, I'm going to check that band out now.
Yeah, for sure. I think you'll like them, man. If you like heavy stuff, you'll dig it for sure.
Okay. All right.
What was your reaction when Pavement came knocking at the door to say, hey, look, we have some interest in this band. Let's talk about it.
So we had actually played a show, I think it was in October of last year, out in the Forge in Joliet, and we had opened up for Saving Abel. And it was actually Scott came up to us after we opened. The bass player Scott, I know there's a few Scotts in Pavement. Scott, the bass player, that he came up to us and was like, "Guys, if you got a record, I'm really impressed by what I just saw, and I think you guys are great." And at this point, I think we were remixing the record. We were on mix number 2 or 3 of the record, I think, at that point, but we hadn't, no one had heard it. So I said, "Yeah, we just finished tracking and we're mixing." He said, "Send it to me when you're finished," and we exchanged details, and I did. I just sent it to him, and he actually wound up connecting the dots for us because he's really good friends with the people at Pavement, and he called them up and said, "I have a band that I think you guys would be really interested in," and that's kind of how it all started. We came in and talked to everybody, and they said, "Look, we're willing to do this, and does this sound like a good idea to you? And we think this could work," and we just went with it, basically, and here we are.
Here's the $1 million question. I don't have $1 million, but I'm going to ask the question. What has adding Venezuelan natives Arturo Buenas, Thomas Zabala, and Alejandro Zabala, what has adding those guys brought to this band?
Good question. I think they bring their own attitude to the band. These guys all play together back home. Tomas has been drumming for years. Him and Alejandro are brothers, so that bass and drum combination is very tight. There's always a brother somewhere involved in a good rhythm section. It's usually a drummer and a guitarist, or a drummer and a bass player. It always seems to be the way. So
yeah.
And Arturo, he kind of brings up more of a metal influence into everything, and he listens to a lot heavier stuff, than we probably do collectively. But he kind of brings that into the fold and the mix of what we do, and for some reason it all shouldn't really gel so well, but it does, and I think it makes it a little bit interesting as well. It's a little bit different because it's not sort of pigeonholed to like one specific thing, I feel.
When you're coming into the recording studio, do you do anything differently during the writing and recording process? I know that's 2 separate concepts, but do you do anything that helps you to keep your mind fresh and open, to not get bored, to not let the music get stale? Do you do anything that helps you possibly?
For me, this is where we're a little different between me and the remaining band members. I kind of leave a little bit for the studio. If a vocal is kind of like 80% there, I'll leave a little bit to be written. Maybe outro sections, or if we're going to put vocal harmonies in here, or if I'm going to try some stuff out, I might jot it down just sort of loosely, like I want to try this idea, or put it, record it in my phone or whatever. And kind of drives everyone a little bit nuts because they're a bit more planned than me. I don't like to, and it's exactly for that reason, which is great that you said it. I don't want to get so bored with the song before I go in to record it, because I feel like particularly for singing, you can lose some of the like excitement with that new recording, if that makes any sense. Like that new vocal take. Sometimes, you can tell like, oh, this person sang that song a million times because the take it's fine, but there's no like energy in it, So from the writing process, we would work up the demos. It usually either if myself and Arturo wrote the song, or myself and Tomas, or myself and Alejandro, we would bring those to the table in, demo form. I would write the lyrics out and the vocal melodies probably about 70% of the way. And we would do the pre-production then and try to get everything pretty much how we're going to track it. And then I still like to leave a little bit in the studio, if that answers your question. I'm not sure if it does.
You're fine. What can fans expect at a show from Blacklist regulars who have not got to see you guys live as of yet? What are they going to get when they come to see you all live?
I think they're going to like what we're doing. It's interesting. We were out with Flaw there for a little bit of their tour, and a lot of the response that we got from their fan base and stuff like that was, and even from the bookers and the people who are in charge of booking the shows and all the rest of it was like, you guys really won over the crowd, and I wouldn't have necessarily thought that they would have been into this so much, So I think there's common elements there that sort of touches on a lot of different bands, and the show was energetic, and we all enjoy doing it. And I think that sort of comes across too, and the show itself is pretty tight, and we're having fun doing it. Anybody who's going to come out and watch us, or they're coming out to watch anyone else on the bill, I think it's going to like what we're doing, hopefully. And if they don't, it's just a lesson to be able to play in front of people that don't like you.
There's the door, folks. If you don't like us, the other bands will be on later. Just leave till the end.
Right, and there's something to be learned there too. I think it's great when you perform in front of people and they may have their arms crossed, for two or three songs.
Yeah.
And then by the end of your set, you've kind of won them over, and I think that's a skill in itself as well, So every opportunity we get to do something like that is just good for the band, But you're with the band, it's like you're not going to be everybody's taste. That's just the way it is. You're making music. Some people are going to like you. Some people aren't going to like you.
Just think about Blacklist Regulars trying to open up for, I don't know, Soulfly.
Right. Right. So sometimes you can get those pairings where you're like, oh, okay, is this a good move for us? Well, let's go find out, Yeah. And sometimes you can be really surprised by how somebody else's fan base reacts to what you're doing.
That's right.
So we can get it wrong too, But I think, as what I was saying is, I think it's important to be able to go out and play in front of a fan base that you don't know how it's going to go, And so sometimes the other ones don't go as good as you think they are too. So I'm always being surprised, basically what's happening. I probably don't know what's going on, but I just try and connect with people out there, and hopefully they connect with the music, and it's either for them or it's not, So it's not personal.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So we're in the digital era now of recording albums, get them out quicker, and plus we got the social media to reach out to more people to hear of Blacklist Regulars. Do you like this that we're living in now, to get albums out quicker and plus reach out to more folks to hear your music or the band?
Yeah, I mean, pros and cons. I think it's easier now than ever to get your music up online and direct people to it, which is fantastic. Before that, you have to go to a record store, you got to queue up, you got to purchase it, you got to go home. But you may listen to that whole record start to finish. So I think that's the difference. If you're, back in the days, you're buying CDs and all the rest of it, you go buy a CD, you go buy a record, you listen to it from start to finish. You'll give every song an opportunity. I feel like with the digital era, yeah, it's easy to get your stuff out there, but it's difficult to get people to listen, and there's so much out there that I don't know, feels like people are overloaded. And not knowing what to listen to is another thing, which is difficult, which is, why, shows like yourself and, people that help in that area is great, because, you can direct people to be like, hey, this band's good. You should listen to these guys if you like this type of music, or if you like that band, you're probably going to like this. And, that's generally how I get recommendations from people that I know what they, I know what they like and they know what I like. So, it's kind of the way it is, right? So I think with the digital era, yes, it's easier to get everything out, but it's harder to get people's attention.
It's true. And like you said, and you're right, and not knocking anybody out there, but it is saturated with a lot of stuff out there, and you have to weed through everything. It's just the nature of the beast, how it is.
Right. Exactly. And, there's different types of listeners. There's the listeners who will give it a shot once it's kind of broken through and proved itself, and then there's other people who will seek out music, and it's a different listenership. So we're trying to do our best with what we've got right now, and I think if we continue to push forward and work hard at it, that these more people will hear our music, and it really is, I think, just a matter of people hearing the music and coming to see the live shows, so we're just looking forward to that.
What made you want to become a musician? What was that spark for you, Luke, that said that I want to do that right there?
Oh, good question. I've there's been a few of them. I remember being a kid and just being obsessed with music and records ever since I was so young. Like my parents had like an insane LP vinyl collection, and I would just go through everything, you know, and it was all great music. You know, that was the thing. They all listened to great music, which kind of gave me an education on, like, you know, they listened to like Led Zeppelin and The Doors and Jimi Hendrix and Zappa and just a ton of different stuff as well, very different genres and all the rest. So I grew up with all that. And then they used to take me to like blues clubs and, like, you know, live music on Sundays. And, you know, Ireland's a little different with the bar sort of structure and stuff like that. You can take, you know, kids to like live music, you know, early on a Sunday and stuff. And I just fell in love with the whole thing of music. I remember just very early on just being like, yeah, I think this is what I want to do, you know. Now, if I could go back and talk to my younger self, you know, the thing I think the thing about it is people don't realize how difficult it actually is to do it as a full-time thing, you know, and what's kind of required, particularly in this digital modern age where there's, let's say, not the value on a record anymore, you know. So, but I always just remember being in love with music from as early as I can remember, you know.
Is there a country that stands out or maybe shocks you that Blacklist Regulars gets support from, or your guys' music even gets played in that area?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I was interesting actually, because only the other week we got a note back from the guys saying, you seem to be doing pretty well in Seattle. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I thought about it for a second, and I was like, well, you know, the bands Soundgarden, you know, that whole grunge movement and stuff was like a big influence on I remember, you know, just being a big influence on us collectively. I think all of us. And it's interesting because I know it's a big influence, and a lot of it came from there. So I got a bit of a kick out of just seeing Seattle as one of these areas that, you know, it seemed to be reacting pretty well to our music. I think New York, the East Coast, some spots around there. It's just great to you know, see that like people are listening to your stuff in other areas, you know, and it's kind of wild. My whole thing when I was a kid was like, I listened to so many American artists that, you know, the whole dream was always to come to America and play, you know, and I kind of feel like we got the opportunity to do it now, you know, so it's great.
Is there a band on the bucket list you would like to tour with, or maybe do an old school album split with, possibly?
Oof. Well, for me, I mean, a couple questions. For me, I was a huge Guns N' Roses fan, so if I got any opportunity to ever work with them or go on a tour with them or be a part of anything they were doing, I would jump at it. They've always been the sort of the catalyst for, you know, rock music. I remember my cousin giving me I don't know if you've ever seen the Live at the Ritz, 88.
Yeah.
At the Ritz Ballroom. He gave me that on like a cassette tape when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, and he's like, check that out. And I just was like, yes, that's what I want to do. You know, I had no idea at the time, and that was my first sort of introduction into that sort of world of rock music. But I just knew it wasn't glam rock, and it wasn't, you know, it felt dangerous, and it felt like it was going to explode at any minute, or the whole performance was going to go, you know, you just never knew where it was going to go, but it was exciting, and it was like, yes, that's a rock band, you know. And as far as other touring, I mean, there's a litany of bands out there at the moment we would love to perform with, like Pop Evil, True Fire, Nothing More, Breaking Benjamin, I Prevail, Disturbed, and of course all the guys, Alice in Chains. any one of those bands would be pretty cool, I think, for us, you know, whether it would be as you said, like an old school thing, or, you know, anything that's coming out that's modern, that fits into what we're doing. And we kind of look up to those bands as the sort of trailing the path for us, you know.
And check it out too, man. You mentioned, and you hit you mentioned a big thing about Guns N' Roses. You're right.
Yeah.
You never knew what you were getting during that live performance. So think about this. When Metallica, James Hetfield, he got hurt. He couldn't do the show. I think it was in Canada or somewhere like that. And then Axl Rose just said, fuck it, we're canceling the show. The big riot that was caused, oh my God, that was huge.
Yeah.
I would have wanted to be there. No.
It's the temperamental frontman gene, which makes them great. at the same time. It's one of those things that makes them great. I think they caused are you talking about it in Detroit the time they ripped up the place?
It might have been Detroit, but I want to say it was Canada, but I'm not 100% sure. But I know
it may have happened several times with Guns N' Roses. I believe there was, I believe there was a lot of that.
This was the actual Guns N' Roses and Metallica tour. I think Use Your Illusions and Black Tour, something like that with Metallica.
Right.
So
right. You don't know what you're going to get, and I kind of felt like, those guys weren't up there telling someone else's story. They were up there telling their own story.
Yeah.
And all of it was, I don't know. There's a certain level of like, anytime I listen to new bands, it's kind of like that sort of like thing of, do I believe them?
Yeah.
Is this real? Is it not real? Is this, are they talking about themselves? Are they not talking about themselves? There's that kind of thing. And with bands like that, and any ones that sort of broke through into that sort of level, there's that sort of, it's a real thing, it's a real band, they're not pretending to be something. And there's always that, Stone Temple Pilots had the same thing as well. Scott Weiland is like, I don't know if the performance is going to be great, if it's going to nosedive, if he's going to get in a fight.
Yeah, for sure.
Halfway through it. And that's what rock and roll, music has always been for me, and the greatest frontmen have always sort of carried that with them, I try and be my own version of that, but I really think it's still, I'm still learning all the time and trying to be better at it. So I'm not there yet, but I don't know. There's a feeling you get when James Hetfield's, you couldn't imagine anyone else but James doing that in Metallica.
Sure. Right. I agree. 1,000%.
It would be weird if they tried to replace James tomorrow. I don't think people would be I think people would be upset,
I can get up there and do the yells. Yeah. That's, oh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's about it.
Get up there and do the yells, but, those guys, in my opinion, are just sort of irreplaceable.
Exactly.
People can come in and out. I mean, and they did it with the Guns thing. Axl went off and did his thing, and the guys went off and they formed their own things. And they had some great bands like Velvet Revolver. Slash did his own thing, Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators, and I think Duff and I think Matt have all done their own things. A new band coming out, Deadland Ritual. Have you heard of that band? Matt Storm's new project.
Yeah, it's got Geezer Butler, Steve Stevenson.
Yeah,
or Steve Stevens.
And I've heard the two singles they got out now. But to me, I mean, that's interesting to me. If the songs are great. I would be interested in seeing them live too. But they've all gone on and they've evolved and they've come back. And I remember saying, like, when those guys come back together, it's going to be the biggest tour. It's just going to keep going, and it's continued to keep going. Like, it just keeps going. The Guns tour it's still going. People just still want to see it because I think it had so much of an impact on people's lives at a certain time. And that's how I think about music too. That's the power of music. It can bring you back to certain times in your life.
That's exactly
and certain
right.
things you were doing, and you associate songs with, happy feelings or sad feelings or whatever it is, or, songs can get you through things that, other things can't. So it has that ability to be able to touch you and do those things and relate to you without, it's a magical thing.
I agree. Folks, you want to get out and pick up Blacklist Regulars' debut album, Through the Blast, which is out now via Pavement Entertainment. Get out and pick up this album. Give these guys a good chance and support them. I know you will not be disappointed. So, Luke, how can folks stay in touch with you guys, buy some merchandise, tour dates, things like that? How can they do that?
Everything, all our social media is just Blacklist Regulars. So blacklistregulars.com, Facebook, Blacklist Regulars. You can check us out on Bands in Town. Follow our events. They're all being updated at the moment. And Instagram, Blacklist Regulars. So it's all on there.
Before I let you go, good sir, would you care to do a promo for my show?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Hi, this is Luke Keating, vocalist for Blacklist Regulars, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We got some great stuff coming up. You only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour and BODS Mayhem Radio Network. Please get out and check out our Facebook page. It has our podcast link, YouTube link, and soon our Twitch link. And also get out and check out Blacklist Regulars. Please pick up their album, Through the Blast, via Pavement Entertainment. Give these guys a chance. I know you guys will dig them. So, Luke, best of luck as always to you guys, and keep your head to the ground and keep busting it out, man.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.